Иди сюда. Иди сюда в кадр. Смотри сюда. Что там? Смотри. So, this video... Ладно. God damn it, come back. It's interesting to note. Lara, what are you doing? Hi, my artsy folks. My name is Elina. I'm an artist, a researcher, and an entrepreneur. And today's video is on a very interesting and not a very clear subject: artistic research. By the way, this is Lara. She's helping me. What is artistic research that everybody is talking about, and probably no one really knows what it is besides very, very few people? So I wanted to shed some light on what it actually is. And a lot of things that are called artistic research are actually in reality not a real artistic research. This video is based on writings of Henk Borgdorff, who is a professor of research in the arts and academic director of the Academy of Creative and Performing Art in Leiden University in the Netherlands. Julian Klein, who is the director of the Institute of Artistic Research in Berlin and the president of Society of Artistic Research Germany, while being an adjunct faculty of University of Arts in Berlin. And Florian Dombois, who studied geophysics and philosophy in Berlin, Kiel and Hawaii, and acquired his PhD from Amsterdam and Berlin. After that, he has developed the concept of art as research to challenge modernism in art and scientific modes of expression. He currently holds a professorship at Zurich University of the Arts in Switzerland. Let's figure out what is it. Oh, but it doesn't want to stay with me. What is it, this artistic research? Or the right question would be actually, when is the research artistic? How can it be conducted? Is it science? Is it art? Is it something in between? I want to briefly talk about what science and art actually do have in common and how close or maybe far from each other they are from a researcher's perspective. Without research, neither science nor art would have the essential base. They both balance between the tradition and innovation. It's interesting to note that they are not two separate domains as it may seem at first, but in fact they do have a lot in common and they are actually closely intertwined. First of all, it's necessary to state that there are three categories of artistic research according to Henk Borgdorff, and they are research on the arts, research for the arts, and research in the arts. But what is the difference? Let me read you these quotations because I don't want to rephrase Henk Borgdorff. I think that he has done a brilliant job defining these categories in his book, The Conflict of the Faculties. Research on the arts is research that has art practice in the broadest sense of the word as its object. It refers to investigations aimed at drawing valid conclusions about art practice from a theoretical distance. Ideally speaking, theoretical distance implies a fundamental separation and a certain distance between the researcher and the research object. Although that is an idealization, the regulative idea applying here is that the object of research remains untouched under the inquiring gaze of the researcher. Research of this type is common in the meanwhile established academic humanities disciplines, including musicology, art history, theater studies, media studies, and literature. Social science research on the arts likewise belongs to this category. Looking beyond all the differences between these disciplines and within the disciplines themselves, the common characteristics of these approaches are reflection and interpretation, whether the research is more historical and hermeneutic, philosophical and aesthetic, critical and analytic, reconstructive or deconstructive, descriptive or explanatory. The next category is research for the arts. What is this? So Henk Borgdorff writes that research for the arts can be described as applied research in a narrow sense. In this type, art is not so much the object of investigation, but its objective. The research provides insights and instruments that may find their way into concrete practices in some way or other. Examples are material investigations of particular alloys used in casting metal sculptures, investigation of the application of live electronics in the interaction between dance and lighting design, or the study of the extended techniques of an electronically modifiable cello. In every case, these are studies in the service of art practice. The research delivers, as it were, the tools and the knowledge of materials that are needed during the creative process or in the artistic product. I have called this the instrumental perspective. Finally, last but not least, the research in the arts. So after these two, what can this actually be? What can one research in the arts and how? And this is the most confusing, the most complicated kind of a research. So once again, Henk Borgdorff writes that research in the arts is the most controversial of the three ideal types. Donald Schoen speaks in this context of reflection in action, and I, meaning Henk Borgdorff, describe this approach as the immanent and performative perspective. It concerns research that does not assume the separation of subject and object and does not observe a distance between the researcher and the practice of art. Instead, the artistic practice itself is an essential component of both the research process and the research results. This approach is based on the understanding that no fundamental separation exists between theory and practice in the arts. After all, there are no art practices that are not saturated with experiences, histories, and beliefs. And conversely, there is no theoretical access to or interpretation of art practice that does not partially shape that practice into what it is. Concepts and theories, experiences and understandings are interwoven with art practices, and partly for this reason, art is always reflexive. Research in the arts hence seeks to articulate some of this embodied knowledge throughout the creative process and in the art object. So, let me give you a basic example. I know it's been a lot of scientific text. If we study historical dance, and for instance we study how it used to differ between certain regions or countries, this is research on the arts. We have the object, which is the historical dance. We're not changing anything in it. We are studying its features and priorities, right? If we take the same historical dance and we'll analyze, for example, how can we change the floors? What materials have to be used in order to improve the quality of the dance? How can we change the floor? It's a very basic example, but just so it's clear. So, what are the things that can be applied and how it will change and improve the object of the study, but we're not changing the object itself. The third category, research in the art, would be if, for example, we perform this historical dance, but we change the conditions drastically and perform it in space in 0G. Of course, it's not gonna be the same dance anymore. It's gonna really change, and most likely it probably won't even resemble anything that it looks like here on Earth. So that research in the arts is taking the object, the art process, and applying such drastic changes and studying how it can be improved or what is going to be different to that extent that the entire object can really change. And that's the whole point. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to rewrite a Mozart sonata backwards, although that probably would be a research in the art, hypothetically speaking. Maybe somebody has done it, I don't know. I just made this up. But this is what the research in the arts actually is. It's not very clear to figure out where it starts and where it ends, but I hope that I gave you some basic guidelines on how to differentiate between the three. The aim of artistic research in general is knowledge. It's not just researching for the sake of research, because It can be endless and there can be no result, so it means no point. But the aim is actually to find out what it can bring us that can benefit our peers, and to document it in a certain form that it will be accessible in the future. Of course, the target audience for such kind of a research would mostly be artists who are looking for the material and information on how to improve what they are doing and what it would bring them if perhaps somebody has researched something similar. So it would be a pathway for them to start their own journey and develop it. Certain authors say that the research must be verbalized, and others say that it actually is embodied in the product of art. Ultimately, it has to be acquired through sensory and emotional perception, precisely from the artistic experience from which it cannot be separated. It is sensual and it is physical. In other words, it can really be felt. I hope that I was able to shed some light for you on what it is. Actually, what is this strange concept of artistic research? Please comment what your thoughts are, and let me know if you're interested in more subjects like this in the future videos. A reminder that I offer free consultations on organizing your artistic projects and organizing your future ideas for artistic projects, even if your project is not yet completely developed and the concept is still in process. Let me know if you're interested, and all the links to sign up are below, and sign up for my newsletter for artists. Like this video if it was useful, subscribe, hit the bell button. I wish you to have an amazing week. Bye!